Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday night. That means it's time for another edition of SOMSpotlight presented by Sun Parlor Trailers. My name is Craig Smolders, joined as always by Rob Young. Rob, how are you tonight?
Really good, Craig.
Excellent, excellent. We had a fantastic night of racing Saturday night. Congratulations to all the feature winners. 5 classes, a little over 3 hours. Things were just moving right along, and it was a good night. The track was in pretty good shape. We had some great races. The Thunderstock race, that was a whole mess up front. They were 3 wide, a couple rows back, and it was pretty interesting. What did you think of the Saturday night racing, Rob?
Yeah, and we all are. It's kind of we have a new team, and we're going to make some mistakes, but all in all, I think that the fans in the grandstands, they're not going to see all of the imperfections that we worry about. But we're trying every week to make it better, and we are. So I can't wait to see where things go from here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, tonight we're going to be joined by Great Lakes Legends Series driver Josh Indig. He's going to be coming on here to talk to us for a little bit about some of his racing and stuff. The Great Lakes Legends Series, they will be racing this coming Saturday, June 18th at Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. So make sure you're coming out to check them out. They always put on a good show. So let's get Josh in here and let's have a chat with him about all of this stuff. Come on in, Josh. Good evening, Josh. How are you tonight?
Hey, guys. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Oh, we are excellent. What's going on? What's new and exciting? How's everything for you?
Oh, everything's going well. Working a lot. Looking forward to getting back in the race car. It's been too long. Everyone else has been racing. I've been following how everyone else is doing, but just with my work schedule, it's been a little bit tough. But looking forward to getting back at it.
All right, Rob. Do you have anything you want to open up with?
Well, I watched Josh during practice and a few sort of heat races and stuff last summer. And Josh is kind of the class of the field when it comes to racing on the dirt. But he comes from a long line of, I say a long line. His father was a great racer in the late model division back in the 80s at Checker Flag. So I can't wait to hear what Josh has to say. Want to know when Craig's going to ask you where the 5 came from. I know it came from your dad, but where did it come? Where did he get it from? And we got lots of questions to ask you, Josh, and I know you're up to the task. So I'll turn it back over to Craig.
Well, we're gonna jump into this here right quick. They're pretty tough questions. So you sure you're up for this?
We'll try.
All right. Well, I'll start with the toughest question of all. Was it always racing for you from such a young age, or were you into other sports? Stick and ball, baseball, hockey, soccer, whatever.
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, it was primarily racing. Honestly, I was never much of an athletic kind of guy, like stick and ball sports. I tried, man. I played soccer for years, house league. I get my butt kicked. It wasn't. I was literally the kid like picking daisies, like. They throw me like in defense, or I'd just be like sitting on the bench or whatever. I definitely, I did a lot of skating. I did a lot of swimming. I was a pretty good swimmer, but it kind of got to a point where I had to make a decision. It was either, train 3 or 4 days a week at the pool and go competitive swimming, or train 3 or 4 days a week and spend long nights at the shop going go-kart racing. And well, I think, you guys know my dad, so he maybe helped sway me into the racing side of things. So that's kind of where I've always been. I did a little bit of competitive gaming for a while, but that's really about it. It's been racing for, since I was like 7. So.
Awesome. Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Well, Josh, I think most of the go-kart experience was on the asphalt. Not so much in the dirt, but I know I've watched you on the dirt, and you're a fantastic race car driver in the dirt. But tell us a little bit about the go-kart stuff. Where'd you get started in go-karts, and fill us in?
Yeah, so my first ever go-kart I got I was 5 years old. There it is. So that's a photo when I was probably 5. When I turned 5 on my birthday, my dad had this custom go-kart built. Bobby Labonte was my favorite driver at the time, so that's why I was the interstate batteries green and white, and it even has the 18 on there. So they threw like a little Honda motor on there, and I was too young to go on like a regular go-kart track or anything. So that photo is taken, if anyone's familiar. So that's like Patillo and 22 or EC Row right there. That's now a storage place, but back in the day, it was an empty parking lot, and we used to just fire that thing up. And I would just drive in circles really for like hours until I'd run out of gas. That was what we would do on weekends. So that was when I was 5. And then when I turned 7, we bought my first racing go-kart. And at the time, it was called Sun Parlor Karting Club out in Leamington. Go-kart track is still there. They still have races on the weekends. I look back in those days pretty fondly. I learned a lot, raced with a lot of guys that are, pretty notable names. Devlin DeFrancesco, like he, just raced at Road America and IndyCar. Just watched Roman DeAngelis race at Belle Isle. I mean, I raced with him. Grant Quinlan, you look at what he was able to accomplish in, a very short amount of time in stock cars. It's pretty impressive. So we got to race with a lot of really accomplished drivers out there in Leamington. So we did that for a number of years, worked our way up through, it was, cadet, novice, junior light, junior heavy, whatever, as I got older. And we also ran a 2-stroke Rotex go-kart for a while. So that's kind of where I got my experience of, how to drive sideways and stuff like that. It was obviously still in asphalt. We traveled around a little bit too. We went to, did a couple of Brian Stewart karting events. And when they had the downtown Windsor Grand Prix there for a couple of years, we did that as well. So that was good experience. Yeah, I mean, back then we would have like 30, 35 karts that would start, the race. And I mean, even if you weren't having that good of a day, there were so many karts out there that you were still gaining racing experience. Even if you were off the pace, you're still racing with somebody. So it was, invaluable experience that I certainly, you could never put a price tag on that kind of stuff.
So I think Josh, we do have the picture of the next kart that you bought or owned or whatever.
Yeah, you guys should.
Yeah, but how was your karting? Were you successful? Win a lot of races? Win a lot of championships? Or were you?
I never won a championship. I got rookie of the year. We obviously won some races. We were always up there battling, but we had some real heavy hitters that we were up against. We were up against guys that, they had budgets that were orders of magnitude higher than us. And, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. They're all great drivers, but I think it definitely taught me it really disciplined me and taught me, really how important it is to, to keep your head down, keep working. There were a lot of years where we would go winless and we would just go out to the track literally every night after school. And, Leamington, they don't have lights out there. Right. And so we would just go until literally the sun was down and they would have to kick us off the track, just trying, different bars, different seating adjustments, different track widths, whatever it was, trying to get faster. So we spent a lot of time and had some success. I had a lot of success in the 2-stroke stuff, a lot more than the 4-stroke stuff. A lot of the 4-stroke stuff was, drafting and really came down to how big your motor was. But, the 2-stroke stuff, you could kind of make up for, some of it, in the corners. So we had some success there, and I really missed that. I wish I could do some more karting.
Awesome. And how did you pick the number 3 for your kart? I see there's a number 3 on that one. How'd you pick that?
Yeah, I think 5 was taken, to be honest with you. So 3, I was a fan of Earnhardt growing up. So, I remember when I was, pretty young age, I remember what happened with 500. It was one of my first memories of NASCAR, unfortunately. And so just in his memory, we picked number 3. And, the card after that, I actually used the same number styling as Earnhardt Sr. too. So, I think it's, I don't know. It was a pretty lucky number for me, but once I got into stock cars though, I wanted to go back to 5. That was kind of, for my dad.
Okay. Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, in that top picture on the right-hand side, that's Josh's dad, Rob. And Rob has been, he's been a late model driver at Checker Flag back in the day in Mount Clemens. And he also owned Boss Auto Wreckers, where a lot of us guys, when we were younger, that's where we used to get a lot of our parts. And he was he was very instrumental in helping out a lot of guys in racing, whether it be for parts or whatever. And obviously he was instrumental in Josh's go kart career. And yeah, you know what? I've often said this, that some of the best drivers I've seen come from go karts. The skills that they learned at an early age and a young age transfer over into the full size cars. And I know Josh is going to talk about his legend car, but earlier we were talking about what it's like to drive a Legends car. What does it feel like? And I kind of, in my mind, I've been in one before, and it is like it's like a go kart, only bigger, because it reacts very similar to that. But anyway, back to his dad. I've asked Josh this, but I didn't. I don't think I got an answer, and I was wondering, where did your dad get the 5 from? Like, where did that come from, Josh?
I'll be honest with you. That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to ask him and maybe get back to you on that one. I'm really not sure.
That's okay. I got a couple questions for him too. Maybe we should have him on the show one of these days as well. All right, I'll turn it back over to Craig.
Yeah. So at some point you decide you're done with go karts and you want to jump into a full size car. There's another picture of you go karting, but you decide you want to jump into a full size car and you pick a Legend. Talk about moving up to a Legend a little bit and how that all went for you.
Yeah. So at the time, we were racing. So there's the downtown Windsor Grand Prix, and then those last photos there. So that was really fond memories of that. There's a stage right where that is now, but that was pretty cool being able to race right along the riverfront like that. So we when I turned 13 at the time, that was the minimum age to move into legend car racing. You could be 13 with racing experience. I believe it's 12 now with racing experience, but at the time we were kind of investigating, what route we wanted to go. Do I want to go into like an F1600, like stay in kind of the the road racing formula style stuff, or look at more what is kind of a diverse car that could race maybe on road courses and ovals, and everything kind of funneled down to a legend car really. You can run it on just about anything, and the research that my dad did at the time, Michigan had basically the best series in North America. They had 30 to 40 guys showing up every weekend to qualify for these races. And that's kind of what I was used to in Leamington. We had very strong kart counts. And, we didn't really want to do something where I'm only running against, 5 or 6 people. We wanted to get as much experience as possible. And so, legend cars just kind of seemed like the right way to go. And you hear a lot of testimonials from different drivers, especially the NASCAR guys. They say, I've had this exact conversation with Max Pappas before, and he's driven everything from the coolest kart series cars, champ car, just about anything in NASCAR, and he says that when you go from a legend car into a late model, you're almost taking a step back on the asphalt side, because you go into so much tire, you have so much downforce, and you're not really up on the wheel like you are with a legend car. And then when you go from a late model into something like a truck or an ARCA car, you kind of almost have to relearn everything you forgot from a legend car. And so, it's a really important stepping stone for, learning car control. And then there's also the other kinds of tracks too, where you have to treat it almost as like a momentum track. So it's really good to, to learn how to carry your speed and learn discipline behind the wheel, because those cars punish you if you do stupid stuff. So it really is just the ultimate driver's car. And so I think we made the right decision to get into it at 13. My first time ever in a car, I remember being so sideways that I was looking at the track behind me. And I don't know how I saved it, but I saved it. It was during like a rookie training day. And I remember the series president, when I climbed out of the car, I'm like, yeah, the car's a little loose. And he looks at me and he goes, I think you're ready. He didn't even, and the next thing I know, I'm getting thrown into a feature race. I think they started 35 of us in a little quarter mile in Auto City, Michigan. And I think I went like 1 or 2 laps down, and I was just spending the entire race in my mirrors, just trying to, stay out of the way of the leaders and stuff. But even that was just an invaluable experience. I look back on it, and I don't have really any regrets. We didn't hit anything, so that was my goal, was to not hit anything. So we didn't hit anything, and then the next race, I think I was maybe a lap down, and the next race after that, I was on the lead lap. And once we kind of figured out how to set the cars up, because they are a lot different than, setting up a late model or something like that. It's kind of a whole different methodology. Once we figured that out, it's like a drug. You get hooked on it, and being able to race competitively with some of the best guys in the country, it was pretty rewarding. So that was kind of my first year, and then we just gradually, worked on our car, got it better and better, after seasons, and kept our notes, and yeah.
Awesome. Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Sure. I don't know if I should tell you this, Josh, but I stood beside your father while you were racing at SOMS last year, and he told me, he says, I got to get Josh into a late model. So I think that's in your future, but just because we have our audience is made up of sort of a diverse group, but most of them are stock car guys. So I'm just gonna let them know about Legends cars. Actually, the body style came from the 30s and 40s. When I first started racing, we had a division called the Coupes, and some of the young guys may not even remember the Coupes, but we had street stocks, late models, and a coupe division, and most of them raced in the dirt. And the Legends car is kind of a knockoff of the Coupes back in the day. So the bodies are the same, but of course the chassis are a lot different. And Josh is gonna. I just wanted to let everybody know that's where it came from. And they run a 1200 and 1250 cc Yamaha 4-cylinder engine, and it makes about 122 horse. But Josh tells me that I think he said there's a 3-cylinder out there as well too, or something like that. And
That's correct.
And again, just to kind of give everybody an idea where they came from, that's where they came from. And so I'll just turn it back over to Josh or Craig, and you can and carry on.
Josh, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So legend cars are basically so that the idea of legend is just to kind of the legends of NASCAR raced in those kind of those coupes way back in the day. And so the body styling resembles 1930s, mid to late 1930s coupes and sedans. You can see on screen there's so the red car was the one I used to race for years. So that'd be like a 37 Ford sedan, and then you also have like the coupe there as well. The 7 cars would be a Ford coupe. So at one point they had Dodge coupes, they had Dodge sedans, they had Chevy. There are still some Chevy sedans that you'll see some Ford sedans. Most cars you'll see now are the coupe body styling. And a lot of people have different theories as to why they're better from like a vehicle dynamics perspective, but you'll still see some sedans and stuff on road courses, especially on dirt. Sedans can be pretty good on dirt as well. And so another interesting thing, you look at a photo there and it's like, okay, like that looks like a normal sized car. But when you walk up to them, and this is the one thing I get from everybody, it doesn't matter who it is, they're like, wow, these things are a lot smaller than I thought they were. Everybody. And I mean, we had Alex Tagliani sit in one of the cars during the Motorama, and he loves the legend cars, by the way. He's never had an opportunity to drive one, which surprises me because he's driven literally everything. And he sat in the cockpit and he's like, wow, it's small in here. And this man raced in kart. And I don't know like how familiar the audience is with like kart interiors, but they were not designed for ergonomics. And, you sit down in one of these legend cars, you're sitting on the ground. Like you are 3 inches off the ground. It's like you said, it's like a go-kart. You're sitting as low to the ground as you can get. Every once in a while, you might feel the bottom end of the car drag on the racetrack. You're getting so low. So, the 5/8 scale car, we can still fit the 95th percentile male in there. We can, there's special seating, and they've done some modifications to the chassis over the year to accommodate larger size drivers. But it is a very tiny car. And so, They're definitely a very unique car. They're similar size. If for people maybe haven't seen them, like a Micro Sprint or something like that could kind of be a comparable wheelbase. Yeah, they're definitely a tiny car.
Coming from the Josh, coming from go-karting going into the Legends, was there quite a transition there, or like a learning curve, or was there any similarities that you could kind of bring with you as you got up and got more experience?
Yeah, there were a lot of differences. Um, the first thing I remember vividly was, oh crap, I need to use my brakes to actually slow this car down. Because I was used to getting up pretty high speeds with our Rotax. Like, we could get up, you know, 60, 70 mile an hour, like down the straightaway, and which is pretty fast for a go-kart. But you hit the brakes, man, that thing just stops. Like you got no inertia, the thing just stops. You get into a legend car and you hit the brakes and the thing's going to dive like 5 or 6 degrees, but it's not stopping. Like you really got to back your corners up. And yeah, I'll never forget just like the feeling of like just standing on the pedal and just like waiting for the thing to stop. Like you're just hoping that it's going to stop. So that was kind of one of the first things. And another thing that's really interesting is in go-karts you don't really have any like gross body motion, right? Everything is just kind of like lateral. The cart yaws out, but you really don't. Your only travel is essentially in your tires. You don't have any real suspension travel. You get into a legend car and everything's exaggerated. All your body motions, the roll, the pitch, the way the cars dive. If you've ever seen a legend car like on asphalt, like the really good handling cars, I mean, the whole front end, it just looks like the entire thing's going to fall flat on its face. We don't have anti-roll bars or anything like that. So everything is just, you drive off roll. At least I drive off roll. A lot of my, even at work, we're doing stuff, and we can talk about that later. I've had to like teach myself to not drive on roll as much. So you have to teach yourself basically an entirely new driving style to drive these cars. Go-karting certainly helps, like, learning racecraft and all the real bare bones basics, and, understanding how to set a person up for a pass. Like all those things still apply, but the actual dynamics of driving the car, all that pretty much went out the window, and you had to start from square one again. So.
Okay, Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, it's interesting to talk to Josh, and in case the audience hasn't realized by now, Josh is he's got an education. When he talks about yaw and pitch, he's got an automotive engineering degree from the University of Windsor, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does for a living, but it's automotive related. He's got the all-time fun job. He gets to design stuff and go out there and test stuff. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about what you do for a living.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. It's literally a car nut and like an engineer's dream job. So I work for Stellantis, formerly FCA, Fiat Chrysler, formerly Chrysler, Daimler Chrysler, whatever. So we're like fifth largest automaker in the world right now. So common brands you'll see on the road, obviously Chrysler, we build Pacifica, you got the, Dodge brand, Jeep, and then you can even go, Ram, we have, even overseas, you got Lancia, you got Alfa, Maserati, we deal with all those guys, Peugeot, some French automakers. So we're all kind of amalgamated together in one super group of automotive manufacturers. And so my job essentially is we deal with a lot of the real pre-production vehicle dynamics stuff. So on paper, I'm considered a vehicle dynamics engineer. So I work in what's considered the advanced department, where we're responsible for, the real proof of concept stuff. So, Glasshouse will say, we want to come out with a new platform. We want to come out with a new Charger or Challenger, whatever it might be. Our job is to, prove out the real initial concepts, set, vehicle level targets. We want the car to to reach 1G in the, in cornering? Do we, do we want to break the land speed record with it? Like, you can pretty much come up with any functional objectives that you think meet the brand. You got to work with those guys and figure out, what from a base level and what I mean by that is kind of, the suspension hard points, the architecture, the stiffness of the frame, the real bare bones stuff. We don't deal with anything that, we don't deal with ABS or any active systems. Everything's just, if you turn all that stuff off, what does the bare bones car feel like? And so we do a lot of the pre-production stuff. There we'll build, our proof of concept mule vehicles, which are, our real bare bones, usually very bare bones test vehicles. And then we correlate them into what we call our vehicle dynamics simulator lab. And so that's located conveniently in Windsor. So me being from Bell River, I'm pretty close. So I spend a lot of time there working on, 2024 through 2027 launches, and various different platforms will bring those into the simulator, and we drive them. We have, tracks and all these kinds of various things. And we make changes. And so it's a pretty cool job. Get to work with a lot of cool people, a lot of people who have a lot of, racing backgrounds, especially in the dynamics world. We still have to suit up in fire suits and put helmets and Hans devices on when we're going to go out and handle the cars. So you still get the same adrenaline rush, even if it's in a minivan. So, you get to get paid to beat the crap out of vehicles. So I can't complain. We sometimes, especially in the winter months, we'll do a lot of traveling as well. When there's snow on the ground and we can't do a whole lot of testing here. So, the traveling aspect is cool. In the summer months, I'm usually around here. I do work a lot though. So sometimes I can't go to all the races, but, if I'm not racing on the racetrack, I'm probably racing a production car somewhere in a proving grounds. So it's all worth it.
So when you're not working on race cars and you're not designing passenger cars, what kind of stuff do you like to do for fun, Josh, outside of racing or work?
It's a good question. I have my sim racing rig behind me there. Unfortunately, I don't have as much time as I used to be able to do that because I'm literally sim racing at work. But sim racing, obviously, I'll play some video games. I do enjoy just like, I have a few 3D printers. I do a lot of stuff with that. I've 3D printed quite a few components for the Legend cars, actually. Working on different entrepreneurial ideas. In the background when I have time. No matter what it is, I feel like I'm always just working on stuff. And like when I'm not, I just like feel guilty that I should be working on stuff. But I definitely have like a soft spot for gaming. I do enjoy just, hanging out with friends, playing games and stuff like that. So for the most part, that's what I'll find myself doing.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to go back to the racing here a little bit. Talk about some of the successes that you've had in the Legend cars, some of the races you've won, and that type of stuff.
Yeah. So, with Legends, the cool thing is you can travel just about everywhere with them. So it's kind of it's sanctioned by INX. They're called INX, and it stands for Inexpensive Racing. Obviously, that's an oxymoron because racing is not cheap. And I'm just going to say that right now, even Legends racing is not cheap. But, relatively speaking, it's not, the most expensive thing in the world. And, but it's the same rules package everywhere. So you can take your car with your tires and go to New Jersey, or you can go to Florida, and you can go to Nevada if you want. Like, you can go to the UK, you can go to Australia. They might make you put like a light on your car or something if it rains. But like, for the most part, it's like the same base rules package that they use everywhere. And so we've had the opportunity to travel quite a bit over the years. We'll pick like a track or whatever and try to make a vacation out of it, and then, race one of the days or something like that. So, we've been able to go to places like Atlanta Motor Speedway. We got to do the Turkey Derby in Wall Stadium Speedway a few years ago. That was cool because I think the high temperature was like below freezing. American Thanksgiving. So, we been down to Orlando Speed World. We did one of the bigger events for Legends is the Winter Nationals down there. So during Florida Speed Weeks, they have Legends racing every day throughout Speed Week. So that was definitely an experience. I did a lot of racing, obviously, up here in Ontario. So some of those photos there, I see Sauble Speedway, Sunset, Delaware, Grand Bend. We ran well. Obviously, we won all those events there. We did pretty well throughout Ontario over the years. We managed to get the championship in 2017 for Ontario overall, which was pretty cool. And a lot of what we did, we don't like to do a lot of points championship stuff. The advantage of Legends is you can just go to the big payout races. You can just go to the races that have like a 1,000, 2,000 to win type stuff. And so that's what we did for a lot of years. But I figured we needed a championship. So in 2017 we followed the Ontario Series and managed to pull off quite a few wins in a championship there. So we did that for I've raced Legends for on and off for basically 10 years. First few years we spent obviously in Michigan. That was a very competitive series at the time. If you could finish in the top 10, you were doing really well for yourself. Those guys were really fast. So we've done some road course stuff. Obviously, dirt's quite new. For the first time ever, we were doing dirt last year. So in the Great Lakes Legends Series, we're starting to dabble into some of the dirt stuff, and I think there's definitely some potential for the cars to stay on dirt. So it's we definitely had an interesting. We got to race against a lot of guys. William Byron. You look at like Bubba Wallace and stuff like that. Like we all share the racetrack with them. Christian Eckes, all those guys. So it's kind of cool to be able to say that you got to race with them. It's kind of hard to watch them on TV, but it's part of it, I guess, right? It's racing. Not everybody can make it to NASCAR, so.
Definitely. Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Well, you know what? You're sort of a perfect model for someone who deserves to be in NASCAR with your engineering background. And
thank you.
Do you know that you did probably know this, but Alan Kowicki had an engineering degree, and so is Ryan Newman.
That's right.
Both those guys did very well. And poor Alan, he used to have that little symbol on his car, Mighty Mouse, because he did it all on his own. But that's I watched you at Delaware, and I believe you won that night, and I was really impressed. That was even before I met you, but I know Dan and Gloria Russ, and I know that they put this program of a number of cars together, and they have guys out in it's kind of a rental deal. And your dad maintains the cars in Bell River at the shop. I mean, it's funny how I mentioned you a little while ago that shop that he's in used to be B&J Trailers, and that was owned by the Murphy family. And I've been in that building many times. I've been in it a couple times when your dad was working there, and he also sells cargo trailers out of there in case anybody's interested. I don't sell cargo trailers, so I'm okay. It's not in competition with me, but he loves those cars. He's working on them all the time, and man, you got the perfect scenario. Your job is to work on cars, and you get to race them, and man, that's really cool. So, and I also see you're wearing a quick hat, so I'm sure that
Right.
I know Frank Wall is really instrumental in a lot of the racing divisions, whatnot, and the Legends cars. So, with just those individuals I've mentioned there behind you, man, you've got a really good thing going there. I'm kind of envious, to be honest with you. But anyway, I'll turn it back over to Craig.
Do you want to add anything to that, Josh?
Well, I appreciate it. It's weird because for so many years, we go to the racetrack and it would just be my dad and I, right? Like, and the cool thing about Legends is that, you don't need. I mean, it helps, but you don't need a whole team of people. If you show up to a track and you maybe make a couple adjustments here or there, it really is. Two people can handle it. And for years we just kind of flew under the radar, and we would show up and run well. Sometimes we would win and take the money and leave, and that would be it. And with this deal going on with Dan Russ Motorsports, everything has just fallen into place. It's very interesting how important it is to be. And I'm an engineer. I suck at talking. I'm not a social person. Like, I'm a total fish out of water doing this. But like, you basically just have to put yourself out there, and sometimes these opportunities can just show up. And it's so weird, when you listen to some of these drivers, like NASCAR drivers, and you hear their stories. I mean, you just gotta, it just seems kind of like a right place in the right time. You put yourself in these right positions where, we managed to catch Frank's eye with, all we did was we said, hey, what if you just go take this car out for a couple laps? He goes, really? Like, yeah, let's just go out and do 5 laps. He was hooked like immediately. And ever since he's been such a great asset, for us, and supporting us in marketing, and the amount of people that he knows, the amount of people that Dan knows, the amount of people that my dad knows. I mean, he's introducing me to people, and it's like, oh, like I knew your dad from whatever. I bought my first race car from him, and I'm, and then I'm always blown away the amount of people that my dad knows, the amount of people that Dan, Frank know, and it's just like the social connections in racing is just so important. And like I said, I never realized it for so many years. We just kind of showed up to the racetrack, did our own thing, parked off in the corner, and did our thing. But now it's like going out there, and the marketing and the social aspect of it is just as important as the on-track performance. And it's really benefited all of us. Everybody's having such a great time. And at the end of the day, it really is about having fun. And, you look at, Frank just has an absolute blast. He loves it. Even if he doesn't drive, like he's just having a great time. My dad's having the time of his life. I love it. And all the other drivers have loved it. And Dan's been having the time of his life too. So, it's been awesome.
Excellent. So I guess looking at these pictures here, at some point you explore other opportunities, not in a bad way, but you want to go drive for other people, and of course that means you can't always bring your number with you or your dad's number or whichever way you want to put it. But
it's close. We're close.
Close. But talk about driving for other people a little bit too, and how that happens.
Yeah. So that was kind of my first taste at driving someone else's car. I've driven other people's cars, occasionally, like somebody's having some trouble or whatever. Hey, jump in my car and see like where my car is lacking in handling or something like that. I've done that before, but I've never shown up, and just drove somebody else's car. So this was Legends Nationals 2017, I believe. So we this was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and obviously, at the time we had my car, the red sedan, and it's a long haul to bring it out there, and we. At the time the motor was getting pretty tired. We'd run a full season here in Ontario, and we would only had about a week to turn that car around to get it to Vegas. And hell, it takes about a week to drive to Vegas, towing. So we decided to go down the rental route. And I'm happy we did. We did pretty well that weekend. So that's that 51 car is run by Todd McCollum and Kyle Beatty from Beatty Racing. So they basically prepared the car entirely. I just showed up with my driver gear and drove it. It felt very weird, and my dad was a total fish out of water there. He did not, in the beginning, he did not like someone else wrenching on my car. But by Sunday, like by like kind of the feature time, like he was getting a little bit more comfortable. But I certainly was uncomfortable too, right? You're jumping in, it's a total different seating position. You got to adjust everything to the way that you like, a different steering wheel. Some of the stuff that you take for granted in your own car, when you jump in someone else's car, it really does feel totally different. Even if it is still just a legend car. So, you kind of had to get over that stuff. And so, we ended up practicing all right. Ended up winning our heat race, which is pretty cool. And then, started pretty deep in the field, I think, for the feature. And then, worked our way up to, I think, 6th. Fifth beat me to the line by like a bumper or like a nose, which kind of sucked. But, we had a pretty great event. Those guys, they're the best in the country, right? At the end of the year, the Legends, they have their national event where basically the top points runners from every state and province come down, and basically it's whoever's the fastest in the country wins. Usually those races can turn into a bit of a game of attrition and avoiding wrecks. But our particular race, I think we ran, pretty all right. There was definitely some oil dry on the track that we had to avoid. You can actually, I have a GoPro on the car. You guys can check it out. I think it's YouTube, JIR, Josh Indig Racing. You can just look up my name and you'll find the video. It was pretty entertaining races. Definitely one of the hardest races I ever had to do because that track is just so fast. And you have to carry so much momentum. If you miss your corner once or whatever, I mean, you're going to lose like 10 positions because everybody's just so fast. You're locked bumper to bumper. There's really no room for error. And the draft actually comes into effect there a little bit too. So it was definitely a really good learning experience. I'd love to do it again. I'd love to do maybe the Dirt Nationals at some point. We get a little bit more seat time in the dirt. I think that would be pretty cool.
Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, you speak about how technically demanding these things can be, but so the little Yamaha 1200 or the 1250 engine, and it's you run a little 5-speed transmission in that, I think. So
Yep.
Do you do any shifting other than on a road course or something? Because you have so many different gears to go through. I wonder if the ratios might be pretty close between fourth and fifth for restarts and stuff. Is there a lot of shifting that goes on in there at all, Josh?
On restarts, we'll shift. Depends on the track, once or twice. There are some oval tracks where it's tight enough. If your car's tight enough, you can probably grab a gear. For the most part, on ovals, we'll probably stay in our high gear. Depending on how the ratios fall, if it's fourth or fifth or third. On road courses, obviously, we're shifting quite a bit. On dirt, I guess it's really to be seen how that's all going to work out. From the videos I've seen, it looks like a lot of people just kind of stay locked in one gear.
Yeah.
But there definitely are some tracks where you could probably get away with shifting and get a little bit more time. What I find is that, we're more traction limited out of the corners than we are gear limited. So although in the ideal scenario, you might be able to grab a little bit more time, even in high gear, I find that you can buzz the tires pretty easily coming out of the corner with our, pretty low end torque. So there's kind of advantages and disadvantages to both. I find, with the 1250, it's kind of a little bit more of an advantage on some of these shorter tracks. With FZ09, you might maybe see some people shifting a little bit more. So it really all comes down to driver style and the track, I think.
So we also talked about chassis. We just I want to touch on the gear thing here. So you guys run a quick change in that?
We do not. It's still so it's a modified Toyota Celica rear end from like the early to mid 90s. It's very similar to like a 9-inch Ford rear end. So it's a bit of a pain to get that thing out and swap the gears, but I know NX has talked about for years running a quick change, and people have talked about the cost benefit versus, just having spur gears versus whatever. I don't know how long or, how far that is down the pipeline. I know that's probably what Legends are going to end up being, but for right now, everyone runs the same. You have to run like with the big rear end gears. So you got to lug those around to the track. But typically, we know exactly what gear the car needs. So, we'll do it at the shop with the car up on the hoist. Doing it in a parking lot sucks. It's horrible.
Now this, earlier we spoke about this, but I know there's probably a lot of listeners want to know how many different chassis manufacturers there might be. And I know you said that out of the Charlotte area, there's one main chassis manufacturer, and of course these are fiberglass bodies, and the engines are they're like our little 602, 604 crate engines, but they're a sealed engine, which makes it nice for tech. So tell us a little bit about the chassis manufacturers.
Right. So the chassis are all, purpose built at US Legend Cars International. So they have their own fab shop. there, and they order in all the metal stock. They'll do all the bending and cutting, fish mouthing, everything that needs to be done to fabricate the frame, roll cage, and certify it out of the factory. They they will ship the frame as you see there in the photo. So that's just kind of a 3D CAD of what the frame would look like landed on your doorstep, and everything else. All the bolt-on components and such come in boxes, really, and then you can build it up as a kit, or you could buy it. I mean, they can pre-build it there. They have an assembly area where they'll assemble the car for it to be turnkey. And so, once the car arrives, you have a couple options, right? You could either just build it as is, go to the racetrack, and a lot of people have a lot of success with that. Typically, what a lot of people have done, and in the last decade or so, is they'll have it shipped to either a dealer. So each province or state has a dealer, and there are car assemblers as well that aren't necessarily dealers, but they deal with setting up the cars, doing the alignment, and there are some things that they can do to the frames. They'll modify the front clips a little bit to maybe get a little bit more speed, and the rear clips as well, which is not allowed in the rules, but it is something that some of the teams will do maybe to get a little bit of an edge. And with that too, a lot of people will do setup clinics and stuff like that, and they'll teach you how to set the cars up. A lot of those types of people are south of the border, especially as you get into kind of NASCAR country, the Charlotte, North Carolina area. The person who we've dealt with for years, Doug Stevens from Advanced Technology Motorsports. He's about 10 minutes up the road from Atlanta Motor Speedway. So, he deals with a lot of guys from Georgia, and he works with Ken Reagan, who handles the Legend Cars of Georgia stuff. So, up here, Kevin Foisey, he'll deal with, he does the same thing, but typically, those cars will get sent down south, and someone down south will make the modifications to the frames as needed, and then ship them back up, and he'll do the final assembly up here. So everybody kind of has like their own way of setting the cars up. I've driven a lot of different ones. I've driven ones that are straight out of U.S. Legend Cars, and we have a pretty good working relationship with G. Chapman, manager of U.S. Legend Cars, and he's pretty confident that their cars can go out and win just as is. So it really comes down to preference, who you trust. There are definitely, it's the racing business. There are a lot of shady people in the racing business, so you have to be very careful where your money goes. But there's definitely a lot of options in terms of, not necessarily, I guess, chassis builders, but maybe people who will modify and help your frame to go a little bit, get you that extra tenth maybe.
Josh, tell us a little bit about the tires that they run on these Legends.
Right. So, Legends run a spec tire. So we got 3 photos on screen there. So your top one there is our spec dirt tire. So, just recently, Legends switched to Hoosier as their primary tire distributor. And going forward, that is the tire that they want everybody to purchase. Obviously, with the tire shortages right now, they are being pretty lenient on, if you have some older tires that were legal a few years ago, you can still race those. It's kind of on a series by series basis and how many people can get tires. But in a perfect world, everybody would have these Hoosier tires. So they're, pretty standard. Legend car tires are very, very stiff sidewall. They're designed to survive, pretty high wear. So they can be good for, anywhere between 800 to 1200 laps, and be competitive, which is pretty cool. So you don't need to, buy tires every week. Even with some of the older tire compounds that we raced on years ago, you could get 2 or 3 weekends, as long as you take care of your tires, don't flat spot them, and do anything stupid with them, overheat them. You can get 3, maybe 4 weekends if you're lucky, before the tires really start to fall off. With these Hoosier tires, you can get even more, maybe 5 or 6 weekends. I've heard guys that run an entire season and they run up front with the Hoosier tires, as long as they take care of them right. And so, the second tire down there in the middle of the screen, that's the spec asphalt tire. So it's obviously like a semi-slick tire. So they can run on like a damp track. We won't run that particular tire on anything more than a damp track. Once you lose the track and it gets covered in water, you'll switch to the bottom tire, which is actually a rain tire. So this is kind of new for Legends. Beforehand, they would just kind of run with the semi-slick, and you just kind of hope for the best, at least until the track would get too saturated, then you couldn't. With this will allow you to run on a much more saturated track, both on oval or on road courses. So this gives us a lot more options to be able to race in the rain. So that's the third tire, and you can get those. They're available from like all your Legends dealers, or you can buy them directly from US Legend Cars International themselves. Of course, right now, if you look at anything, everything says out of stock. So everyone's trying to get tires. It's an absolute mess, and it's like Lord of the Flies trying to get tires right now. But that's hopefully will get resolved in the near future.
Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know what? It's a shame that we have such this tire problem where we allow we use the LM Hoosier tire. Usually it's the 20s, but we're allowing guys to run the 30s and 40s as well, because you're right, there just isn't a lot of tires out there. But but before I forget, obviously anyone listening knows that Josh is pretty competitive, and but it comes from that he gets that from his dad. So I got to tell you a little story, and if your dad's listening, he's probably going to giggle about this. But you're back in the day in the 80s, your dad and a lot of late model drivers used to run they ran at, of course, at Delaware and Checker Flag and Mount Clemens and Flat Rock and Toledo, and you could run like 4 or 5 nights a week. But so one night at Mount Clemens, your dad had a little disagreement with another gentleman racer, and they're both Canadians. And when the Canadians came back across the border, they always used the tunnel. And so if anyone knows what the Detroit-Windsor tunnel is like coming from the American side, you have these booths, and then it kind of all funnels into this one curve, and it's like it's only one lane. Now these guys are hauling. They usually had pickups and trailers. So this altercation that your father had with this other racer, they were both at the booth at the same time. Only one was at a different booth, and they're looking at each other. And the first guy, they both exited the booth at the same time, and it was a race for that curve. Now, all I remember was that the race trailers had some significant damage. I don't know who won, but it's a story I'll have to ask your father. And I think I don't know if he's ever shared it with you, but I'm pretty sure he won that. So he was competitive, not only on the track but off. But yeah, when I first met your dad, first of all, he did so much for Checker Flag with the tow trucks and hauling scrap cars out of there. But he was also a tech guy, and so I wanted to make sure I was a friend of your dad's, because I wouldn't want to get disqualified or anything like that. Especially, I bought parts from him. Like a lot of the Camaro front clips, the Crown Vic lower control arm would fit, and it worked great on the right side because it was a little longer than the Camaro one. And of course, we used Oldsmobile wide 5 spindles because the actual spindle was closer to the upper ball joint and it lowered your center of gravity. But I don't want to bore you with all the details, but I wanted to be a good friend with your dad because I wouldn't want him disqualifying me for a questionable item. So
no, of course not. You always have to come to the tech guy.
Anyway, I'll turn it back over to Craig.
All right, Josh. Well, while we're talking about the Legends, tell us a little bit about the motors that they're running in these things.
Right. So there are currently 3 options. So I have 2 on screen here. So the old and most common, from a few years ago, what would be the most common engine would be the Yamaha 1250cc out of it's an FJ or an XJ bike from back in the day. So it's an inline 4 red cam. So they typically make about 120, 130 horsepower. So those motors were historically the most common. So what's cool is they are a sealed unit. There are engine seals all around the engine, so that they get built up at U.S. Legend Cars International. They have an engine shop, and they'll dyno them and seal them, and they'll ship them out. Now, there are obviously other options that you could go with. So you could get a Yamaha 1200, which is a very similar motor, but they allow you, it's an open motor, so they allow you to do a little bit more with that. Obviously, I look at a lot of the races I did, even in nationals, I would say 99% would run just the 1250 sealed. It was a lot easier and typically a lot faster. So a lot of people would run those. In the past 5 years, Legends has been trying to phase those engines out. They're still legal. People still run them. There's still quite a few people that run them, especially up here. The Yamaha FZ09 is the new motor, and so it's an inline 3. They make relatively similar power figures. They make power at different times. It's a 6-speed gearbox instead of a 5-speed gearbox. It's a constant mesh gearbox. There are quite a few, small differences and nuances. To maybe a new driver, they wouldn't notice too many things. To someone who's more seasoned and experienced, there's definitely some differences. And, from a vehicle dynamics perspective, there's a lot of differences in the way that you set the car up. Your weight distribution changes, your power delivery changes. So there's quite a bit that has to change there. But one of the big advantages is we're now running a front-mounted radiator. So instead of running an oil cooler with the 1250s, they were all totally air-cooled. You just ran an oil cooler out front, and those cars would get toasty very quickly. And the biggest problem with them is they would blow up because they were not designed for being inside of a race car. They were designed to be on a bike with a ton of airflow. So, they had a lot of reliability problems. When you look at national events, when you're putting oil dry down every hour, it really backs up a show, and it's a promoter's nightmare. And it's a team's nightmare too. If you're renting cars out, you got to bring a bunch of spare motors. So the FZ09 was really introduced to try to combat a lot of those issues. So it's obviously now it's fuel injected. It's out of like a 2017-16 Eurospec bike. So they're all, fuel injected. So now you're not dealing with carburetors and tuning your carburetors and all that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit more wiring and whatever, but it's really supposed to be kind of the plug and play solution for them. From a rental perspective, you look at what, Dan Russ Motorsports is doing. It makes things so much easier. You don't have to tell the drivers to park up in front of like 30 fans, because when you come in and those engines, those 1250s are boiling hot, you'll see at the racetrack, there's fans everywhere with Legend cars. Like we're putting fans on brakes, we're putting fans on the head, we're putting fans on the blue plate, like we're putting fans everywhere. It's a lot less fans. You don't have to cool that motor down, the FZ09. So, and they sound different. They sound pretty cool. I do like the way the 1250s sound. They also sound pretty cool. FZ09 will turn, a little bit higher RPMs. So those are kind of the 1250 and the FZ09 are kind of the two common ones. You're starting to see, every year more and more people are kind of, as the 1250s are blowing up, people are putting the new motors in. It's definitely, a much larger cost to entry for the new motor, but it's supposed to last a lot longer. So it's kind of a short-term loss, long-term gain.
Now, Josh, you really love these Legends cars, so much so, in fact, that you wrote a book about these Legends. Talk about your book a little bit.
I did. So here's a few pages from them, actually. Yeah, so that these pages just kind of explain how the different classes work, what a Legend car is, and the different body types. So yeah, I during the lockdowns, when Dan Russ came up to me and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. I got a bunch of guys that have never driven race cars before. They're going to be driving race cars." I sat down and thought, well, how are we going to teach these guys everything that they need to know? And, there were quite a few months where we weren't really allowed to do much here. So I figured, when's a better time to, write a book? And they had a lot of time to sit down and read them. So, it's about a 180 page book. roughly. It has a lot of diagrams about, the different various components from suspension side, from the engine side, repair manuals, how often you're supposed to change the oil, um, to how you're supposed to drive them. You go to a track where you're supposed to run it like a momentum track. How do you identify a momentum track versus, a track where you gotta, brake really hard and get the car to rotate and cut the middle, like different things like that. So, I go through I start at very beginner's level. What is the car? These pages are from kind of the beginning. What's a legend car? What are the stickers on the front mean? The Y, S, the M, the P, like what do those mean? And then, by the end, it's kind of how do you get around? How do you make lap time? What are the things that you need to look for? If your car is loose, if your car is tight, what kind of adjustments do you need to make? So it kind of covers all bases, and I'm looking to hopefully maybe sell it on Amazon or something. I'm not really a business savvy guy yet, so I'm still trying to figure out how I market it as an ebook or a physical, hard copy, soft copy. But it's there, and anyone who ends up renting one of Dan's cars, I go through it with each of the drivers, and we refer back to it as they have questions. It's really good for visual learners for sure.
If somebody's thinking about getting into a legend car now, can they buy this book from you, or can they buy this book somewhere right now before you get it on Amazon or whatever?
They can contact me. I can for sure. We can work out a way that I could either get them a soft copy. I do have I do have soft copies, and I do have a few hard copies as well. They can DM me. My name's Josh Indig. You can look me up. I'm on Facebook, and just shoot me a DM, and we can work out a price. I'm not a business savvy guy, but we can figure it out. I'm not looking to rip anybody off, but it's definitely a good read, and it's definitely worth the money if you're looking and you're interested, or even if you're new and you want to try to figure out how to get a little bit faster. It's the book for you.
Excellent. Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope. Other than I know I don't know if you're going to ask Josh. You asked him about how to get a hold of him, but I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now who will go to Facebook and would be interested in that book, Josh. Just have some copies available. Might want to ask you how many Legends cars are we going to expect on Saturday night at the Southern Ontario Motor Speedway? Any idea?
That's a good question. We had a pretty strong field at Grand Bend the other night. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of them. But we would be happy with 11 to 12 cars. I think that would be a good number. If we could get more, that would be awesome. But 11 to 12 cars, I think, could be a pretty good show.
And you guys have your own, like as far as tech is concerned, you sort of police yourselves. And is there like you'll use our flag man and our race director and all that stuff? I think you're pretty familiar with that. You guys have been at the track before. So good. I mean, if you got 11 of them, that would be great. You put on a good show. I'm looking forward to it. So I'll turn it back over to Craig.
Yeah, and you guys raced there last year, and you guys put on a good show, and now you're coming back, and we're definitely happy that you're going to be coming back for a couple shows this year, including this Saturday. But talk about that a little bit, racing on the dirt, and how that's a whole lot different than racing on the asphalt, Josh.
Yeah, so it was crazy. I remember first getting the call. It's like, we're going dirt racing. We had like 3 days to turn the cars around to get them ready for dirt. And I remember just like sitting and like looking at my dad. I'm like, I don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, I don't know how to set these cars up for this. Like, we can dial a car in for asphalt, but we didn't know what to do for dirt. And so we just kind of winged it, and we did okay. I mean, from a driver's perspective, you really have to have just that next level of confidence that in your own ability in the car. What's interesting about Legends is, we don't really get near as sideways as say like a late model or certainly a sprint car or anything like that. We don't, we won't go in and get like 60 degrees sideways or anything crazy like that. What I found, especially on a track like Southern Ontario Motor Speedway, where, it's a pretty big track for us, is you really got to keep your momentum up. And actually, the more sideways you get with our short wheelbase and our limited power, I guess, you can start to scrub off speed. So it's kind of it's a trade-off between how sideways you want to get and how much counter steer you want to put in, and because that obviously the more sideways you're going to get, it's going to rotate around a tighter radius. But you sometimes might not want that because you really need to have that momentum coming off the corner. So it's really like a balance in between the two of how sideways do you get, how much speed you want to carry. So it really is totally different. With a track that's prepped and a very packed down slick track, it really reminds me of an asphalt track that just doesn't have any grip at all, like a totally green asphalt track, but even slicker. It's not as different as I expected, I don't think, but at the same time, you need to make sure you don't have any bad habits because one of the things I tell a lot of new Legends drivers, and this is something that some people unfortunately learn the hard way, is that, we work really hard to make our cars turn left. Like you can spend 40 hours in the shop a week trying to make that car turn left. And you'll go out there and you'll try your damnedest to make that thing turn left. But boy, do they ever turn right. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're going through a corner and you go to grab a slide and you go to correct, turn into the slide, there's a certain point where if you transfer just the right amount of weight back to the nose as you're turning in, the car just hooks right. And with the short wheelbase, it happens in a hurry. And so that's something that, I had to teach myself, on the asphalt side. And so something that you kind of on the dirt side, it can even still happen where the cars can kind of just snap on you. So that's something that you really have to be careful of. And, our cars don't like the bumps as much. So we really have to run on a very smooth surface, as smooth as you can get. The bumps, we just hop right over them. And, so you have to be a lot more conscious of bumps on dirt than you do on asphalt. Like sometimes on asphalt, we honestly use the bumps to help our cars rotate, or like, a bump will sometimes be like our reference point. But on dirt, you hit a bump and you're like, crap, like this might not be good. Like we're going up the track or we're going around. So you have to be very conscious of that. And boy, it's tiring too. If you're not handling well and you get out even after like 20 laps, even if you're handling well, Legends are a handful. You get out and you're drenched in sweat. So it's going to be really interesting to see, first time out there this year and, seeing how the cars handle, how the track is, how the weather's going to be, how much the weather affects the track and like, the different cars that are racing. Like there's so many more factors in dirt that affect the track conditions and how the track's going to be. Like you'll watch guys, like it's so crazy. Like this is like a new person's perspective on dirt racing, right? Like I'll be sitting there watching like teams and they'll be standing up on the wall watching like a feature and they'll see like the track change and you watch all the teams like sprint back to their trailers and just start wholesaling their cars and they're pulling everything off and changing stuff. It's like an asphalt, you don't do that. Like you're doing that, it's like you're in trouble. But the dirt guys, it's just like it's just part of it because it just changes that quickly. It's very cool to watch.
Awesome. And where else can we find the Great Lakes Legends series? What kind of schedule do you guys have for the 2022 season?
Yeah, we have a very diverse schedule. This is the most diverse schedule, I think, of probably any series in North America. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, we got just about everything. So, up till this point, it's been asphalt ovals. So obviously the May 21st event, we had some rain, we had some bad weather, and so we weren't able to attend. It's been Grand Bend only thus far, the Grand Bend Oval, that is. So obviously, we're going 3 different disciplines of racing in the next 3 races. So we're going to be obviously with you guys this weekend. So that's going to be Dirt Oval, which is awesome. And we go back to the Grand Bend Raceway, except instead of the oval, we're going to do some road course stuff. So we'll do some left and right. So that's going to be really cool. We're expecting some pretty good drivers to come up for that because it's pretty rare. Even as fun as road course racing is in legend cars, we don't get to do it that often. So people are going to take advantage of that for sure. And then the following day, we're back the Grand Bend Oval. So it's going to be pretty cool to have to change your mindset over that quickly. We also have Humberstone. We're going to try that out. It's going to be my first time. I've never seen the track before. And then a few other places that I'm a little bit more familiar with. So Full Throttle. It's a tiny asphalt bull ring. It's a lot of fun in these cars. Sunset, phenomenal location. We've had some pretty good runs there over the years, and they've always treated us well. It's a great place. It's one of my favorite places to race. It's basically a 2-groove racetrack for legends. You don't get that very often, so that's going to be really good. And we cap out the season in Flamborough. So, and I think we'll probably throw another race with you guys to make up for that May 21st date, maybe. So, we have a very diverse schedule. And looking forward to even next season if we could get some U.S. dates or even get some more dates, here in Ontario. And the other advantage too is, so we have our series schedule, but on our off weekends, the Canadian Legend Car Series, they're racing too, so you can race with them. They're running, Sauble, Sunset, and Peterborough. So, you have and Flamborough, so they have a lot of options to race legend cars here this summer.
Awesome. Rob, do you have any other questions for Josh Indig?
Nope. Other than I remember watching him, and he won. It was like a little. They had a heat and a feature at Southern Ontario Motor Speed last year. But he has a really good line around there. He kind of diamonds the track, runs a free line about a groove up off the bottom through the turns, and then he heads up to the flag man. And the car is nice and free. Like he says, it's not sideways, but he's getting the maximum and that momentum he talks about. That line will carries the momentum great for those cars. So if he runs that line, those other guys better be taking some notes because he gets around there pretty darn good. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you. It's I experimented everything. I tried up against the wall. I've hit the wall. I've went down the infield. I've hit things there. I don't know. I've tried different things, and that's kind of like what worked out. I still feel like we could probably get some more speed. Just going out there and getting some more testing. Last year, a lot of what I did was I was just trying to run consistent laps to really train the other guys because they were all so new. And every once in a while, my dad would be like, "Okay, go out there and let's see what the car can do." And that's kind of the line I just ended up running. So. Hopefully it works out.
Yep. Well, you look pretty good.
Yeah, we are definitely looking forward to seeing you guys out there on Saturday, Josh. So we wish you the best of luck, and we wish the Great Lakes Legend Series the best of luck in the 2022 season. And I hope you guys have have lots of good shows and good weather, and do the best you guys can out there, and all the success to all of you drivers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. This has been awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You guys too. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, Rob, there you go. We know a little bit more about legend cars. We got the inside and the outside scoop, and we know a little bit more about Josh Indig. What a nice guy, man. That was a great conversation. He's quite the conversationalist. What do you think of all that, Rob?
Well, I'll tell you what, Craig. You follow me this weekend, and I'll tell you where the food is. You go to Frank Wall's motorhome and Rob Indig's motorhome. I'll tell you, those guys know how to cook. He had some. Frank had some shellfish there last year. Some barbecued shrimp and stuff. Man, I'm telling you that he not only does he know how to build a good fire, he knows how to cook some good food too. So, but anyway, you just follow me. I'll show you where the food is.
All right, that sounds good because I'm always up for good food. Well, bad food or good food, I'm always up for it anyways. Fans and drivers, if you want to see the interviews that we've had on here, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. That's SOMSpotlight, SOMSpotlight on YouTube. Also, the interviews are posted on our Facebook group, that Southern Ontario Motor Speedway Fan Zone. Drivers, if you would like to be on here, don't forget to reach out to myself or Angela Young-Bonner. We'll get you guys all set up and get you on here so you can tell your story like Josh and so many others have already. Next week, we are going to be joined by the 92 driver of the Thunderstock division, Paige Lanoux. She's going to join us. And she has lots to talk about. She's done a lot of karting, and now she's into Thunderstocks, and she was running up front in that big beehive that we had in the feature on Saturday night. So we'll talk to her about all that. Rob, do you have anything you wanted to add before we go off here?
Nope. It's just we're having a lot of fun. We're making some mistakes, but we're taking notes, and we're gonna make this thing. It's gonna run like a well-oiled machine here shortly, but it's just gonna take some time.
Yep, we'll get there. Small steps, and we will get there eventually. We definitely will. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Make sure you join us next week for Solemn Spotlight presented by Sun Parlor Trailers. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.